The story is told of a tall, handsome rector and his wife. And they're taking their young family off on an Easter holiday. As they get into the car, the tall, handsome rector explains that it's a long, long way. And they'd be sitting in the car for a long, long, long time. And the children were told they would not be arriving at their destination until after dark. And they were warned not to keep saying, "How much further is it?" or "Are we nearly there yet?" Well, after a few minutes of peaceful driving, 4-year-old Alice spoke up. "Dad," she said, "is it nearly dark yet?" The title of our sermon this morning is, "How much further is it?" And I guess the Israelites are probably thinking that. They've spent 2 years since they left Egypt, wandering around. How much further is it? And although our reading this morning was just a very small section of the book of Numbers, the part that was read to us is a small section of 2 crucial chapters of the book. 2 of the most important chapters in the whole of the history of the Israelite nation. Numbers chapter 13 and Numbers chapter 14. And these explain why it was that God brought his people out of Egypt, took them to the promised land, only to then make them spend another 40 years in the wilderness. And I thought I'd do the sermon a little differently today, because recently a major archaeological discovery has been made. An extract of the diary of Moses has been discovered, and I believe I am possibly the first to have translated it from ancient Hebrew. And today I want to read you extracts from the diary of Moses. And then at the end I'll try and pull a few things together to think about for us. So what is Moses' understanding of the events surrounding these 2 chapters of the Bible? Well, I invite you to sit back, listen while I read Moses' diary. If you want to shut your eyes, feel free, try not to snore. Here is Moses' diary. I'm going to switch microphones. Day 1. Today marked the start at the end of the time in the wilderness. So I decided to mark the new beginning by starting a journal. It's been the best part of 2 years since we left Egypt. Today I decided it was time to send out spies to prepare us for the movement into the land that the Lord has promised us. Well, actually it was the Lord who decided it was time to send out the spies, but he asked me to arrange it for them to happen. I did wonder why we needed to spy out the land, if the Lord has promised us victory already. But I guess some good reports about the military strength of the opposition and the abundant potential of the promised land might help to motivate the people. The Lord has told me to send out 12 spies. They all need to be leaders of the people already, 1 from each tribe. Well, that makes sense. That way, we choose people who are appropriate to be spies, men strong and true. But if they're also already leaders, then people will trust them and they'll believe their reports. And 1 from each tribe. Well, that makes sense, as that way it avoids the annoying partisan divisions that crop up so irritatingly often. You know, it strikes me that 12 is an important number. Each leader should have 12 leaders under them, to support them, maybe to carry on the good work when their leader is gone. I wonder, maybe God will use this idea moving forward. Anyway, we had a good choice of leaders, but 2 of them particularly caught my eye. Hoshea, son of Nun, and Caleb from the tribe of Issachar. Trouble with Hoshea, it's such a common name. I think we need to give him a new name, one with a similar meaning but a bit more unusual. Joshua, son of Nun. Now that sounds better. I'll mention it before I commission them tomorrow and send them on their way. Day 2. I commissioned the 12 spies today. They're to be gone for 40 days and then rendezvous back here with us. 40 days should give them plenty of time to spy out the land. I've sent them first to the Negeb and then up to Hebron and the hill country and around that area. It seems a good starting point because that was where the Lord first promised Abraham this land for his descendants. I've asked them to provide us with military intelligence. Are the people strong or weak? The numbers of people. Are the towns fortified or with walls? But really that's only secondary to the motivation factor that I'm after. The main aim is to show them the desirability of this land. So I've asked them to report back on the land itself, whether it's rich or poor, whether there are trees in it or not. I've even asked them to bring us some fruit of the land as a visual aid. That should really encourage the people. So now all we have to do is wait for their return. This is me now, not Moses. But I'm going to jump forward 40 days in his diary because the rest of the diary at the moment is pretty mundane. Got up, ate manna, ate quail, sun is hot. If only we had some shade. But then on day 42, the spies return. Let's pick up what Moses wrote in his diary then. Day 42. So much has happened today, it's difficult to take it all in. The spies returned late this evening. They returned with the reports of the land that were everything I'd ever hoped for. A land flowing with milk and honey, they said. And they showed us a bunch of grapes and some pomegranates and figs. They looked so sweet and tasty. I thought the rest of the people might have got up there and then and left for the land. The report on the land was favourable. However, then they went on to the military intelligence. Now I look back, I should have spotted the potential trouble from the start. As soon as they referred to it as the land which you sent us to. If I hadn't been so excited, I'd have pulled them up. It should have been the land which the Lord has promised to us. But I let it pass. That was a mistake. The military information the spies reported to us is this. The towns are fortified and very big. The people in this land are very strong. In fact, the people are so big, we think they must be descendants of Anak, the giants. Then we saw all the vast numbers of different people who lived there. The Amalekites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites. And as the spies spoke, the crowd began to stir. And a wave of discontent rippled through the crowd. It wasn't going according to plan. I still reckoned it could swing either way. And then Caleb spoke up. Good man. As Caleb spoke, it was obvious that he understood the Lord's promise. Let's go and take possession of the land as soon as possible, he said. We can overcome them, he said. But it was as if the others had already made up their minds that they would be defeated. Don't be stupid. They're much stronger than us. You're one piece of unleavened bread short of a picnic. And then they said something that really didn't make sense. They said the land would devour its inhabitants. How could that be the case in such a plentiful land? And then the final nail in the coffin. We even saw the Nephilim, the descendants of angels. Compared to them, we were grasshoppers. Well, their words may or may not have been truthful. I think more than likely they were greatly exaggerated. But one thing was certain. They spoke with fear. Only Caleb and Joshua, although he said nothing, seemed to see things differently. But by then it was late. I called a halt to the meeting. Things always seem worse at night. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning. Day 43. Well, that's put paid to that old wives' tale. Things always seem worse at night. Not with this lot. The rumours started to spread right throughout the camp all night, and with each telling, the opposition seemed to grow, both in numbers and in physical size. And as the night wore on, the people began to stir until there was a steady background of crying and wailing all night. I should have seen the old chestnut come in. Oh, it would have been better to die in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness, they began to wail. We're going to be killed in battle. Our wives and children captured. We'd do better to go back to Egypt. At least we knew what to expect then. Gosh, these people moan. Can't they see what the Lord has already done for them? Don't they recognize the faithfulness of his promises? It really gets my goat, and I've eaten a few of them in my time. And if it annoys me, it must really get to God. Finally, things reached a head. Let's choose another leader and go back to Egypt. Wow. Replace God's chosen leaders after all God has done for them. Make everything God has already done for them meaningless. Ignore God's saving work. Only a fool would do that. But here was a nation of fools. I knew God would be so angry, I fell to my knees with Aaron the high priest beside me. This blasphemy against the Lord would surely be too much. Joshua and Caleb tried to persuade them. They tore their coats in grief at what the people were saying. They recognized the blasphemy and they begged the people. The Lord will give us this rich and fertile land if he wants to. Don't be afraid. The Lord is with us. We will conquer them. I've no doubt what they said was true. But the fact that they didn't deny what the others had said, but rather focused on the Lord himself, seemed to rile the people even more. It was as if they believed their leaders more than God. Murder was in the air. I feared for our lives. But then the Lord intervened. His presence appeared over the tent of the meeting. It was enough to quieten the rebellion. But I feared for what he might say. I knew he wouldn't let this pass. I went and met him in the meeting tent. How much longer will these people reject me? The Lord thundered. Even after all I've done for them. That's it. I've had enough. I'm going to destroy them and instead make you the father of a nation larger and more powerful than them. I pleaded with him. I reminded him of how he would appear to all the other nations if his chosen people failed to reach the promised land. I reminded him of when he had said he was loving and forgiving. I reminded him of when he had forgiven them in the past. The Lord heard me. The nation will be forgiven. Forgiven in the sense that it will not be destroyed. But with the forgiveness also comes the consequences of rebellion against the Lord. Forgiveness doesn't mean they escape the punishment. After all, the punishment still needs to be given. And there is no one else to take the punishment for sin. How else could anyone be forgiven? To escape punishment would require 1,000,000 lambs without blemish, or a man without sin. Forgiveness will mean the continuation of the Lord's people, yes, and his relationship with them. But the punishment will be the replacement of those that have turned against him. That will be the final break with Egypt. All those who yearn for the return to Egypt and the luxuries of their slavery will die. And irony of ironies, they will die in the wilderness, just as they said they would when they complained. All except Joshua and Caleb. They've got a future. And the other 10 spies, their days are short. They will all die soon. I'm just going to draw out a few quick thoughts to ponder on those passages, and then I'll conclude with Moses' final entry that I was able to translate from his diary before he stopped writing it. So here's some thoughts to ponder. I wonder, who do we relate to most in this story? Joshua and Caleb, stepping forward fearlessly into an unknown future, but trusting God? Or how about Moses, disappointed and saddened, but acting as a mediator? Or the crowd, those who are excited but then reject their leader and choose what appears to be to them as an easier option? Who do we relate to? Today is Palm Sunday, as we've heard. The crowds are cheering, looking forward to a new beginning. Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. But not even 40 days later, less than a week, it all changes. Rejection of a leader and the choice of what might appear to be a safer or easier option. This coming week, this Holy Week, is a journey. Palm Sunday through to Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. And then, of course, the glorious opportunity to celebrate and enter the promises that flow out of Easter Day. This week is a journey in the Christian life of ups and downs. And we will see and hear part of the journey at our services over this coming week and on the Walk of Witness. How much further is it? Are we nearly there yet? Where are we heading? Are we choosing God's way or another way? We all know God's way. This is about how we live our lives. Put simply, we love God and we love others. That's it. The choice is up to us, how we live our life. You know, the destination is important, but so is the journey. And the thing is, this journey, which we call the Christian life, it is a journey of ups and downs. And we are constantly faced with choices. But the great news is God has sent his Holy Spirit to help us and to guide us. But we are faced with constant choices in the Christian life. God's way or our way? Which way will you choose? Back to Moses' diary. Day 45, a day of reflection. This will be my last diary entry. I can't keep writing a diary for the next 40 years whilst wandering around a desert. I mean, I can hardly describe the scenery we'll be seeing. Instead, I shall save my writing for only really important things. You know, the kind of things that should be written in stone. Anyway, as I said, I've been reflecting. All night I've been going over the events of the last few days. I can see where we've gone wrong. It isn't just the failure to trust God's promises that is a problem. It's more than that. In part, it's about actively working against God, rejecting him and all that he's done. When it comes down to it, the heart of the matter is, when will God's people believe his word? Will they ever believe the word? The only way I could see that it could happen is if the word somehow becomes flesh and comes and lives among us and shows us how to live and how to worship, how to completely trust God against all odds, even to the last. God in human form. But that could never happen, could it? And even if it did, they'd probably try to kill him.